So, first, let's talk about this. What's going on, guys? Andrue2 here. Just wanted to bring you another video, a little bit more with the Diablo 4 feedback and PTR. I made a video on the first day, just my reaction. I wanted to get that out there just to kind of show how interesting things are. But this time around, I decided to actually write down some things. Got some inspiration from Rax in regards to writing things down. It's a lot better option to do that rather than trying to remember things and say things when they come to mind. So, without further ado, let's get into the Diablo 4 PTR feedback so far from what I've collected. Now, obviously, servers at the current moment are having issues with connecting, so I'm unable to continue this at the moment. So, I thought, as of right now, let's try to make it as complete as possible. So, the Pit is a new challenge, just like Greater Rifts in Diablo 3, but it's a little bit different. Um, Not so much in the sense that it's the exact same kind of game mode. You run through, kill monsters. There's no drops of loot until the very end of the fight. Um, and frankly, I feel like this needs to be changed up just a little bit, right? We had Greater Rifts in Diablo 3, and they lasted for, I mean, I think they're still going, to be honest with you. And that's the end game in Diablo 3, are just running Greater Rifts over and over. Um, it's not very exciting running one singular thing over and over and over with no real change. Obviously, there's change in monsters, change in layout, but it's the exact same thing. There's no user manipulation. It's all done throughout the game. The game provides uh, all the monsters and everything. You just choose the tiers, and that's basically it. I feel like there needs to be more emphasis on exciting and rewarding things that are happening in the pit. Um, just a couple of notes that I've put down for the pit that I noticed while playing it. First off, feels like Greater Rifts were just copy and pasted over, and I don't enjoy that. If I want to go do Greater Rifts, I'll go play Diablo 3 and I'll do Greater Rifts there. But personally, I feel like there needs to be a ton more monsters within the pit. There just needs to be something feeling like it's like you're going deeper, right? When you say the pit, it seems like it's just a bottomless sort of hole filled with something that you don't even have an idea of what's in there, right? Could be demons, could be a boss, could be loot, could be a lot of things in there, but just having it play out like a Greater Rift isn't very exciting, considering a lot of people came from D3 to D4 and they've experienced that for quite a few years. So I think switching it up, uh, one thing that I noticed was, maybe like change the actual obelisk, right? It looks very similar to the obelisk in Diablo 3, and I think that could change just the look of it. Will really kind of inspire and get some more imagination going with the pit, right? You could have something like do a pillar of bones and then like you insert a skull into like the hole in the socket and the socket turns and then that opens up a blood portal or just something, you know what I mean? Something Diablo 4-esque, like dark and grim. We don't need this, metal obelisk that just pops open and stays there while the portal's there like it looks from D3. Personally, I think that should be changed. Also, having something like Helltide ambush inside of the pit would be really cool. I think having monsters drop in or pop out of the ground, even though it doesn't really look real when they're coming out of the ground, it adds a lot more like oh crap kind of moment, right? Like maybe I shouldn't be in this location with my Sork. Maybe I should be outside of these. So it's like instead of the character manipulating the area, it's the area manipulating the character, right? So the area causes me to move to the outside of the arena as opposed to staying in the center where I can just kill everything. So having different things like that, um, like the Helltide ambush, like the worm that pops out and just starts spitting out all these monsters, right? Something like that I think would be really cool. You kill a boss or you kill an elite, and then like one of those things pops out and shoots out like 3 or 4 more elites, right? That could be a very interesting thing within the pit. It could also, add some excitement, add some fun, things that you wouldn't necessarily have in that moment. So I think there could be a lot of things that would be worked through that. Second thing about the pit is that I personally feel like the boss arena needs to be a lot deadlier. I I did tier 13, tier 14, tier 15. It's not very high, but I got the sense that like the boss was going to be the exact same way on tier 100, tier 105, tier 1010, like tier 110, tier the higher up you go, the boss is just going to be the exact same. So, in order to create situations where the boss seems like it's going to be harder, I would have things like I noticed when I was fighting some of the bosses, there was like the snake boss, and he would shoot these poison balls on the ground, and they would explode, and the poison would stay on the ground maybe 30 seconds. I feel like that poison should stay on the ground the rest of the fight until the boss is dead. That way, it gets increasingly harder and harder and harder the longer the fight goes on. Which in the pit, you're trying to kill things as quick as you can because you're racing against the timer. So having these situations where it gets harder and harder and harder and harder and harder the longer you're in combat with the boss will make it exciting. It'll make it so that you are encouraged to kill it quicker as opposed to just taking your time and running. Like I was running around in a circle. I was running around in a circle for the boss, and I was just shooting frozen orbs in the middle, right? That's all I would do. Just shoot frozen orbs, just run around in a circle around the boss and just shoot frozen orbs in the center. Like, there needs to be things that cause me to switch it up, right? Like maybe half of the arena gets filled up with poison, right? So I'm only restricted to this small little area, and that is causing me to try to think about what I need to do next, right? There's things like that could potentially cause it to just I don't know, feel more exciting, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, it felt like running in circles around the boss was just not very fun. Obviously different classes will be a different way, but personally I just feel like there needs to be more like frightened moments in the boss encounters, just specifically because you're at the end of it, right? And the boss doesn't need to be just like a beefed up normal mob or a beefed up elite. It needs to be a boss, right? It needs to be like an actual encounter that has moves that aren't available in other areas, right? So, like I mentioned, like a pseudo Echo of Lilith fight, right? Like Echo of Lilith is technically the pinnacle, and if you take her power and her level of just different skills that she has and different functionality, if you take that level of intenseness and just shrink it by a small amount and give those to the end bosses at the end of the pit, I really think that the pit could be a very exciting and very fun content to play for people. Just please do not make it just like Greater Rifts, okay? That's all I'm asking. Make it a little different, change it up, switch up the obelisk, just do something, okay? Don't make it exactly the same. Players need to see something different. They need to see that we're actually working towards something, not just copying something from Diablo 3 and putting it into the game and then just leaving it there, right? It needs to be iterated upon. It needs to be improved. It needs to be worked with. It needs to be... You get it. All right. So I've got a lot to go over here, right? So the next thing that I wanted to go over was enchanting items, right? When you're enchanting the item, it has the windowed, it has the box. I can't even show you, but it has like the item that you're enchanting with the affixes, right? Well, first things first, there needs to be all like you need to have all the possible affixes showing always, right? I don't feel like I should have to click on a button in order to see what I could potentially get from enchanting this item. I feel like it should always be shown. Now, you don't necessarily have to have it so big. You could shrink it by the size and make it a little bit more minimalist. So you could have both the character screen and that window open. But I feel like having all possible affixes shown is very important, considering that you want to know what the affixes are. Having the ranges as well would be massive, I think, on the item itself to just know what like what tier you're at, right? Like if you're at the lower end of the tier or the upper end of the tier, just knowing information is key, right? Giving players information to take what they can and formulate their own decisions about what that information gives them, I think is very important. And having ranges on your items when you're going to enchant them, I think is extremely important. Also notice that the symbols like the Masterworking and the Tempering did not have any symbols when you're trying to enchant them. I think that should have some sort of symbol on there so you don't, enchant a double masterworked affix. You don't enchant that to be a lesser affix, right? That would feel really crappy to just not realize that 126 intellect is a 1.5 times, right? It doesn't really seem like it is. So I think having symbols next to the enchanting items, like in the actual window where you're enchanting things, I think that should have symbols next to it, whether it be the little anvil or it be the eight pointed star or something like that, where you can show what those affixes are so that you can clearly see it when you're enchanting. For the imprinting aspects, I noticed other people who made videos on this had like a search function, right? I think that's very important too, to have a search function within the favorites in the codex. This is specifically for imprinting. When you're imprinting it, it just gives you the search bar up top, and it just gives you the filters like bleed, movement speed, ice cold, marksman, like the tags, right? It gives you just that, but it needs to have, the favorites as well as the search function as well. I think that's very important for the imprinting, so you can find everything very quickly. Also, it's very strange that going from, and I'll talk about this later with the items, right? But going from yellow to legendary, there's a big like discrepancy, right? Legendaries have 3 affixes, yellows have 2 affixes. So, in all honesty, if legendaries are going to drop for me while I'm playing, there's no reason whatsoever why I would ever pick up a yellow affix, because I'm just going to get one less affix for that yellow one. Now, if it were the case that you imprinted a legendary onto a yellow, it received a random affix, that would be different, because that would mean that I would look for the yellows that have the correct affixes that I'm going for, and within that I could choose, like, okay, I want to imprint this, and maybe I'll get a good roll, maybe I won't. Okay, and I'll imprint this other one again, and maybe I'll get a good roll, maybe I won't. And if I do get a good roll, then there we go. That's it. I don't have to look for it anymore. But I think having another way to gain an affix, going from yellows to legendaries, will create a market for the yellows to be picked up. As of right now, the yellows, there's no need to pick up any yellows at all. Yellows are only there to be the next step until you get your gear, until you get your legendaries in all your slots, right? So, and Rack spoke about this a little bit. I watched his video, and he mentioned that, as you're leveling through the campaign by about like 15, 16, you start getting blue gear, right? He did this. Right, he did this where it was like, so 15, you got like yellows, blues, and maybe no whites, right? No whites. So yellows and blues only. Let's see, we could probably do this a little better. Yeah, 15. Yellows, blues. That's all we have, right? And then we move up into, like, say 40. Right, you're at level 40 now, and guess what? You've got nothing but legendaries. And any yellows you have, those are gone. Any blues you have, those are gone. And any whites you have, those are gone as well. Right, so by 40, you've got nothing but legendaries. And then the higher up you go, it's going to keep dropping yellows and keep dropping blues and keep dropping whites. There's no need for this. You do not need to have yellows, blues, and whites. Or like I said, just make it to where if a yellow drops and it has 2 affixes, and you use a what is it? A legendary what is it? Affix, I guess. It turns it into 3, right? So yellow is 2, you use a legendary affix, and it turns it into 3, right? This would create a market for yellows. Because as of right now, there is no market for yellows. So, that I think would be good, right? This just goes into a little bit more in depth. Yellows innately have 2, where legendaries have 3. Such as that legendaries will always be picked up where yellows will not, right? Unless the mats are needed. That's why mats should drop instead. Blue items are no longer needed in World Tier 4 and World Tier 3, so just eliminate all the blue items, right? There's no need. We're not like crafting from the item itself. We're picking up an item and then manipulating the stats. It's not like Last Epoch or PoE where you get a good base and then you work from that base and you try to build up with that base, right? This isn't that. This is something completely different. It's a whole different system, and with that, there should be a whole different system to compensate for it. There should not be any blues or any yellows dropping in World Tier 3 or World Tier 4. Just simply put, there's no need for them. And if they were to drop, instead, should just drop materials, because, yeah, there's no reason to pick up anything of that nature, unless you need materials. All right, so this one was a little bit of a hot topic, right? Colors of the items. It's interesting because legendaries are one color, and then masterwork items have a little 1 next to it. So having the little 1 next to it, it's very difficult to see while you're killing things. In a Helltide, it's tough to notice that little Roman numeral 1 next to the item. So, this is just my thought process with the different hues for the sacred and legendary items, or sacred and ancestral items. But so because like the sacred gear always drops in World Tier 3, there's not really a need to have the hue above the item. How you have the silver and the bronze hues. Ancestral always drops in World Tier 4, so those hues do not need to be on those items. Maybe it's good to have for new players so they understand what type of item they get, but because we're only going to be getting sacred gear in World Tier 3 and ancestral gear in World Tier 4, there's no need to be able to differentiate those in our bags. Now that it's only dropping in these areas, we know that if we go to World Tier 3, that we'll only get sacred. That there's no chance for an ancestral, right? Or that we're in World Tier 4, that we're always getting ancestral gear. And there's no need for sacred gear. So with that in mind, I do think that those hues, they could even change color, right? You could have a masterworked one be gold, or a tempered one be red, or something, or 2 out of the 3 affixes were boosted, and you can make it green. Something to just show the player in their inventory what the item is, because looking at the items now, there's no way to tell what is masterworked, what is has bonus affixes on it, um, different things like that. So there's a lot that could be changed. Um, right? You could even have a symbol or like a star, something small on top of the item, in the item, so you can actually see like what it is. Right? You could have on the left hand side of the items, you could have like a silver star, a little two inside of a like anvil to show that it's like two of the masterwork tiers, something like that, right? Something where it's simple, to where you look at it, you see what it is, and you instantly know what it is, right? So just a couple of things I think would be a good option. Bronze hue could be masterworked items, silver hue could be tempered item, and a gold hue could be both tempered and masterworked, right? So that way it's clearly visual, like visual clarity for the player. When they're playing, they can see what they have in their bags, as opposed to having to mouse over every single one, because that's what we're trying to get away from, is mousing over every single item that doesn't really make any difference, right? So another thing is, like, there needs to be a better way to figure out what items are masterworked off the ground. Rax made a mention of having, like, there's like red spells with a red ground and red trees and red fire, and I think you see where this is going, right? Red, 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 and red, right? Everything is red. So maybe make them green. Maybe make them blue. Maybe change the color to white, because we don't need white anymore. Maybe change it to blue, because we don't need blue anymore, right? These are colors you could use for masterwork and tempered items in World Tier 4, because we don't need blue items or white items anymore, right? So you could use those colors to differentiate between masterworked and tempered items, right? So that's a change that needs to get in. I just think it'd be a lot easier to see things on the ground, especially when everything is so grim, like everything is so dark and gloomy in the world. I think it'd be a nice change of pace to see like a bright green color, or like a bright blue, or like a dark blue. It would just kind of like catch your eye, right? There's all this red everywhere. There's a bunch of things moving around, and all of a sudden you see this like lime green thing drop at the top of your screen, right? And you're super curious what it is, right? And since there's no sets, it could mean any of those things, right? So I think it's important to have some sort of different color, because Blizzard says we do not need a loot filter. They need to have a way for us to differentiate between the loot when it's on the ground. So the masterworking, I noticed that when I was like upgrading the jewelry for the masterworking, the resistances did not get upgraded. It was just the stats themselves. Personally, I think the resistances should get upgraded as well, considering it is a part of the item, and it does say that all affixes are going to be upgraded by 5%. I do think that those affixes should be counted. They might be counted as implicit affixes instead of explicit, but regardless, those implicits should be upgraded with all the other things as well. Same with the weapons. They should be stronger. You should get better. Like if I was a rogue using a bow and I wanted to do distant damage, I should get that upgrade to distant damage, right? Or even like the 25% upgrade, it could even be that, right? How cool would it be if I had a bow, and the bow implicit crit or something, and I got like 25% more than what I normally would get, right? I think that would be a cool thing. It would change the build around a little bit. You could figure a lot of other things out in regards to that. So I think it should be colored a different color, right? The 25% upgrade chance when you upgrade it, it gives you just the affix itself is color change, but I also think the symbol should be changed as well. If you're gonna do everything normal and have just the blue text, have the blue diamond too. Just change the blue diamond, make it a blue diamond instead of just a white diamond, and there you go. Now you know that that stat is, an upgraded stat. So, okay, so Helltides, getting towards the end of my notes here. Helltides, I thought the density could be up just slightly. There were a lot of areas that were just really barren. And being inside of a Helltide, I sort of imagine there to be just like chaos going all over the place, right? So, just make it so that you can't sit still for more than like 5 or 10 seconds without being attacked, right? That would bring some sort of engagement, I think, to the community, specifically because it would feel like the density is really large, there's nowhere safe to hide, right? And during a Helltide, who wants to hide, right? You're there to kill demons and destroy. So I think the density could be up slightly, just very, very slightly. And I just, it was so, I don't know if this was just the Helltide event themselves, but there was an event where like it was a circle and it was like a spire, and the spire would shoot like a wave here, a wave here, and a wave here. So it was almost like, let's go back to paint here. It was almost like, let's see. So the spire's here. Right, spire's here, and it's shooting out waves here, shooting out waves here, and shooting out waves here. Right? That was, and the ring was like this. Right? That was cool to where, like, this was damaged, this was damaged, and this was damaged, right? And I think having stuff like this, but making it larger would be way cooler, right? Having more sections like this, have this being filled up, right? This is the fire area. You don't step in this area. You don't step in this area, right? And then, while this is happening, there's like projectiles being fired, right? Like this. So that way it's more like mayhem inside of the Helltide, right? I'm in the Helltide, I'm killing demons, I'm trying to stop this spire from forming in the middle of my screen where all these demons are popping out. And the longer I stay in it, the deadlier it gets, right? The longer I stay in it, the faster the circles turn, the more projectiles get shot out, right? It's trying to remove me from the space, and the way it tries to remove the character from the space is it actively makes it harder, actively makes it more difficult for the player to avoid projectiles, avoid monsters, different things like that. I think something like this would be exciting, just having more of them, right? And then here's a little person, right? Something like that, and you could dodge all this stuff, and then while you're still in it, more monsters just keep spawning endlessly, right? Until you leave, and then when you leave, boss spawns, and whatever, it goes off from there. But I think something like that would be, pretty interesting. Or even like something like a new, like a excuse me. So having like larger ones, right? Like, so this is one trap. Shoots out projectiles this way, right? First, and this is only for the first 9 seconds, right? After, maybe add another 9 seconds to that. And instead, there's now a ring of fire around it, Plus, it also shoots projectiles, right? So, and then another 9 seconds after that, right, there's maybe fire here, terrible fire, projectiles shooting out. right? And then another 9 seconds, and now there's lightning bolt shooting down. Lightning bolt shooting down. Lightning bolt shooting down, right? So there's just like, the longer you're in the trap, the harder it gets. And I think for something like a Helltide, where you're there to farm materials, uh, and you're also there to not die, something like this could be really exciting, because it'll mean that, like, okay, I'll have to stay in there and I'll try to farm as long as I can before I feel like my power isn't strong enough. And then at that point, I can just leave. And at that point, everything stops, right? It hits a certain timer, like you hit 10 seconds or like 12 seconds. And the moment you leave, you get X amount of rewards based on those seconds you were in there. And the longer you're in there, the more rewards you get. So I think something like this could be very exciting in Helltides, because it would encourage like more players to group up into an area and sort of like make like a last stand in a way, right? It wouldn't be a last stand, because you could have like new like you could have like new players hop in and continue off of what you were continually building off of. So I think something like that would be pretty fun. Bringing like the Helltides, I feel like the Helltides and the pit have really good synergy. I feel like if you brought some of the Helltide events into the pit, it would make it very interesting. This is like something far fetched, far out there, but maybe even something like you're killing enemies in Helltide and a portal opens up, a portal to the pit, and you jump in this portal. It's at a set difficulty as the Helltide, but it's got all of the Helltide monsters in it, and it's just you, right? There's no other players there, so you make the option to choose to jump into the portal. And then when you jump in the portal, you realize, hey, I'm the only person here, and there's all these monsters here, and they all drop Helltide cinders and things like that. And I feel like that would be a way to encourage people to sort of interact with it. I don't know. Maybe it's just a stupid idea. If it is stupid, be sure to let me know. But I feel like something like that could be very interesting in the long run. Just encourages players to go check out new stuff. Personally, I think that'd be pretty cool. So I did a couple of Helltides or a couple of events in the Helltides, and the first like 2 or 3 waves were really lackluster. It's like 1 or 2 packs and that's it. And then you wait, time ticks, and then you wait, and then another pack spawns. Okay, kill that pack, and then I wait, and I wait, and I wait, and it's like the final wave of the event spawned like 6 packs of monsters. I feel like it should start with that. If you're in Helltide and you're doing an event, it should start with 6 packs or start with 4 packs and get increasingly harder as the packs go on. Right? I don't think this should be very slow. I don't think the Helltide should be like able to think through things. I think it should be quick. It should be fast paced. It should be mayhem. There should just be a lot of action, a lot of things going on. Especially during events, right? You start an event to protect a civilian in a castle who's trying to make it to town safely, and there's like a line of demons guarding his way, and he has to kill those demons in order to get through, right? So you decide to help this adventure, and when you do help the adventure, boom, you get ambushed by like 6 packs of mobs, and then when you kill that, boom, 7 packs of mobs, and then 8 packs of mobs, and then gets harder, increasingly harder and harder and harder. And I don't want this like start it and then just like, oh, I'm gonna kill that guy, kill that guy, kill that guy. Okay, chill, drink coffee, kill that guy, kill that guy, kill that guy. It's got to be like a thorough process. Like, kill this guy, 2 guys spawn. Kill those guys, 4 guys spawn. Kill 4 guys, 8 guys spawn. Kill 8 guys, 16 guys. Like, you know what I mean? It just exponentially gets harder for the player. So I think something like that would be really cool. Okay. So a little bit less happening right here towards the end of the vid, but I felt like the towns were very cool. Having everything really close really made going to town worthwhile. I didn't spend too much time with fixes and things like that. It was just got into town, did what I would needed to do, and left. Right? And that's It's perfect. I don't want to do anything else other than what I'm in town for. I don't want to be in town to travel around all the way the areas and try to grab the correct person. Just make everything central like you have. But bring the alchemist and bring the healer too, because the alchemist is used to make potions and the healer is used to get healing potions and to heal yourself. So if I teleport back and I go repair my gear, I don't want to go halfway across the town in order to talk to the healer and then go back down to the blacksmith. Just make everything local, make everything centralized. Like, it's, I don't know why the healer and the alchemist are in their own little area. Just make everything together. There's no need for that sort of thing. So something that was just like a feedback from me, I feel like having the timers and the objectives in one area would make things simple. Having the whispers at the bottom, like where my fingers are, on your screen, so you have the whisper objective like out of 10 that you can complete. Having the boss timer and the legion timer right above that, I think would be very helpful, as opposed to having it like at the top left hand corner. Obviously it's easy to read regardless of where it would be, but I just feel like you're already looking down there. You might as well have everything down there as like a legend. You might as well have everything down at the bottom, or at least put everything in one spot so I don't have to look at 5 different areas of my screen in order to get the information. I'm just looking at one area, and that area has all the information I need. Yeah, so just keep everything in like one pretty much seeable area. For the character sheet, I personally feel like having like the tempering stat, like showing the increased chance that I'm going to cast Frozen Orb on my Sorceress, or the increased chance that I'm going to create Dust Devils on my Barbarian. Like, these sorts of things that I don't want to have to add up myself. I don't want to have to get a calculator and add everything and then write it down and then remember that's the number I have, and when I get a different item that has different stats, I got to subtract that. It just make it easy for us. Make it easy so that we can see the correct percentage of what we have in our stat sheet. Don't make it confusing. Don't include it in the utility or the just make an entirely new section, call it tempering stat, and just put it there. Right? It's very simple. You can scroll down to the very bottom, look at it when you need to look at it. It's very basic. It's very self-explanatory. I think more things should be like that. Yeah, so we can basically see like the extra % chance of casting Frozen Orb, or the extra % chance of getting another Dust Devil, or something like that. So I feel like this information is vital for players, and if they don't have an easy way of finding it, it's going to be difficult for them, and because it's difficult for them, they're not going to want to continue to play the game as long. So it's just my own personal preference. Maybe it could be somewhere different. So I noticed that some of the affixes, when we're trying to craft like some of the tempering and the masterworking, it's only set to like 45 to 75 for the resistances. Is there any way we could make like half of that, right? Where we could essentially quadruple the amount of fixes, right? So instead of having just all of the regular resists, you have like half fire, half cold, half fire, half shadow, half fire, half poison, half fire, half lightning, right? Like all of these different halves, so you can min-max your character. You could have 35 here, 35 there, and then get another 35 here and 35, and then now you have complete package of those stats. Now you have a complete package of those resistances, so that way you don't have to worry about being overcapped by 40%, right? No one wants to be overcapped by flame, by fire resistance by 40% when they are given, all they need is 10%. You don't want to be overcapped like that, because there's no easy way to reduce that amount to use it for something else. So I think having a way to cut the resistances in half to make 2 resistances available on the item as opposed to just one big resistance, I think would add a lot more layers and a lot more functionality to how players get their items. All right, last thing I wanted to mention is in the Nightmare Dungeons, there's still this like you go through the nightmare dungeon, you get into this area that's like it's like a room, and it's got these like switches or levers or different things like that. Like, just get rid of it. I don't I don't really see a need for something like this to be in the game, considering that we're plowing through the first part of it, and then we get to this room, and it's just like, stop. You can't go any further until you click these two things. It's like, I don't want to click those two things. I just want to keep going. Like, is it possible to, if we have to have this, is it possible to make those things instant cast so that way we just run by and hit it? Because a lever or a switch isn't going to take 5 seconds for me to pull. I'm going to run up to it, I'm going to pull it down, and I'm going to keep moving. Like, I'm not going to sit there and try to, let me try to figure out how to turn this dial. It only turns two ways, and there we go. It's not like that. It's like you run up, you pull it down, or you even kick it. Like, run up, you kick the switch down, and then you keep going. Like, there should not be any of this wait 5 seconds and attempt to disarm this trap, or wait 0.75 seconds and unlock this prisoner. It should be instant. You know, if we're talking keys, if it's instant, you know what I do? I run by the prisoner and I just throw him the key and he unlocks it himself. Like, is that difficult to do? Is it difficult to have things be instant as opposed to having a timer? I understand the timer is there to limit the options the player has in the dungeon. That way they can't just run to all the prisoners and click them and then go to the next area. Well, you don't let players do that already, because you hit this checkpoint in the middle of the dungeon that has switches in it that you have to hit. You can't go forward until you hit those switches. So it doesn't make sense as to why the prisoners wouldn't be instant cast and the switches wouldn't be instant cast. I think everything that requires a player interaction within a dungeon or within a pit or whatever you're doing, if you're killing demons and you're killing monsters, it should be instant. There should be no second delay on how long you're pressing these things. It's a very silly thing. And for me personally, like I was doing nightmare dungeons on my Sork, and I was having so much fun with the frozen orb, just shooting them left and right. And then I got to this like this middle area, this middle battle that's in between the first part of the nightmare dungeon and the second part of the nightmare dungeon. And I felt like it popped my balloon, right? I was having so much fun. And then all of a sudden it was like, I got to click these things, really? Like, I'm shooting frozen orbs left and right, just blowing things up, watching things shatter. Like, I'm basically having ice cream. And then all of a sudden I have to click these two switches. Like, just get rid of it. No need to have that in the game. No need to have that, like, while I'm running around. It should not be like that. So please get rid of those. Please get rid of those things that cause players to just like, let me click this, let me click that, let me click this. It's not needed. So that's basically all the feedback I've gotten today. I've been playing for probably 3 hours or so. And yeah, it's unfortunately I can't log in at the current moment. There are issues with their servers, so I can't show any of the things like what I mean. But you know, a lot of this stuff is very self-explanatory. A lot of it, other people are making points on, and they're showing pictures and videos and things like that. So I feel like it's not very difficult to do these sorts of things. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Let me know if you guys like it, if you think there could be some stuff that's improved, or if you have any other ideas, right? So, yeah. Thanks for watching, guys, and yeah, I'll talk to you later.